Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and next to me is the doctor himself.
Yo. I'm trying to be young.
You're trying to be, I'm trying to be the person that
of the moment.
Yeah. Do young people say yo still?
I don't know.
I think that's part of the problem.
I'm just going to keep testing things.
Yeah. No. It's cool.
Yeah.
Why don't you try something different?
Fam.
Hey, that's better.
I guess that's not a replacement for hi.
Look at you. You got so much Riz.
God, what does that word mean?
I don't know. Why don't you Riz all over my face?
Jesus Christ.
Each week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you. Like who we have on the other end of the line today. We are joined by host of Mosaic Comics YouTube channel. It's Dan Kurtzke.
Hi, I'm here to audition for the position of podcast host. I understand there's going to be an opening soon.
You got it.
Yeah, hashtag last year of the me.
Wait, so he's going to take your role as light in life?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill him.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, the only way to do this is the talented Dr. DC.
Should we maybe talk to your wife and child about this first?
No, I'm sure they're fine with it.
No, it's all wedding vows have it baked in that they work on Highlander rules. So like, if I take your head, the quickening goes into me, and we just go about things as normal.
Dan Kurtzke, Dan Kurgan. Oh my God.
I mean, look, I don't know much about Dan, but I'm sure he could be a better wife, husband, and father than you.
Oh, I've set the bar very low.
That's kind of my move.
Yeah. No, Dan, we're really happy to have you here.
Cool, man. We're ready to.
I know that sounded meandering. I was getting there. I was going to say
I'm almost there.
For people that don't follow Dan on Twitter, Mosaic Comics, great follow, because Dan is one of very few people who has the wild stance online of like, most things are fine, don't get mad.
I mean, that's true. You can like a thing.
It's controversial. I don't know. I feel like I'm making enemies already.
Well, yeah. I mean, our fans are extreme.
I will say that I have a very similar but opposite opinion, which is everything is bad, so why care?
Yeah, we're coming at it from different perspectives.
The same end result.
Dan, every time we have a guest on,
yeah,
I try and ask what got you into comics, and more specifically, what is it about DC? And I guess even more specifically for you, what is it about Green Lantern, that like got you hooked?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, the first thing that really got me into superheroes in general, as well as Green Lantern specifically, was the Super Friends. And
hell yeah.
From there, it was just like an easy access point. Like,
nice.
Although it was funny that like the first time I ever saw like Hal and Sinestro was on that cartoon, where it was very much like, oh, you made a giant yellow mouse, well, I'll chase it away with a giant green cat.
Yeah.
But then my very first time seeing those characters in a comic book was when I randomly read the final issue of Emerald Twilight, and Hal beat Sinestro to death with his bare hands.
Those are two opposite experiences.
Very
very fun and silly, and then just murdering his arch enemy.
Yeah, but like that kind of set me up for a track that I've been on ever since, where the fact that I can see new things in comics that I don't know or understand or expect is what motivates me to want to keep reading and learning more. So like, to me, like the status quo is something that's fun for a little while, but like, I never want to see it again after a couple of years. I want us to keep going forward and do weird things. Like, that's why, like, to me, like, the whole Hal Jordan Parallax thing is still one of the most interesting things they've done with that character, just because like the formula dictates usually that you change this and then go back on it a year or two later, but they stuck to it for a decade. And then when they said like, okay, well, he doesn't have to be Parallax anymore. Oh, is he going to be Green Lantern? No, he's going to be the Spectre now. Oh, and also we're going to change what it means to be the Spectre, just like we did with the Parallax change.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, that little stint of Hal Jordan as the Spectre in that run is like one of my favorite just comics in general. I really love that little blip there. But yes, it's true. I do like that there was sort of like a succession of like interesting ideas there. Well, we wanted to have you on today, Dan, because for people who don't know you, you are kind of like a certified Lantern expert. You're one of the people that started the Lantern cast, and now even on your current, like, your YouTube channel on Mosaic Comics, it's all lanterns all the time, baby.
And honestly, of the people that we could have on from that podcast,
And
I'm glad we have Dan.
We don't know anyone else
Yeah,
that knows
no.
a lot about lanterns.
Nope. I can only imagine having Dan on.
Listen, this is still less mean than I am to him, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's become a through line for me to be mean to Chad since the beginning of this podcast. I don't know why, but I really like doing it.
It's not just a through line of you being mean.
Shut the fuck up.
Oh, I'm sorry. we got a ton of questions. So did you want to just get into it, Dan?
Yeah, let's do it.
God, what if you
I
said
haven't been able to shut up about Green Lantern on the internet since 2008. Let's do it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, let's fucking just squeeze the last few drops out of you.
Yeah, and then he has to shut down the channel. It's like, you know what? I'm tapped.
Yeah, they have to pass it down to the next group of people to take on that podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, our first questions are going to come from Twitter.
Twitter.
And they are coming first from Truth, Justice, and Hope. Not as a concept, but from a Twitter account.
Well, yeah, because one is real and one is not.
Is this
Hope's not real?
All right. First question comes from Truth, Justice, and Hope. And they ask, if I understand correctly, Sojourner Mullane Ring is different. Shut up.
Jesus.
It's a name I haven't read before.
Sojourner Mullane.
That's what I said. Ring is different than that of the. I'm a kind of drunk right now, and it just hit. I was at a brewery right before this. So.
God, you barely said brewery. You had no chance with Sojourner.
Yeah, exactly. Give me a break. So that person's ring is different than that of the average GL Corp member. If that's accurate, how so? And also, do you find her role in Far Sector as an investigator more interesting than the standard GL peacekeeper?
Yeah, Dan, what do you think of Far Sector, of Joe Mullane, and she's got a specialized ring? If you want to talk to that.
Yeah, no, Far Sector I absolutely love. It's a 12-issue series that it came out right in the middle of the pandemic, so it took a little longer than 12 months to come out. But it is a noir-esque detective story set on like a massive alien city, and it's a more traditionally sci-fi thing than we're used to seeing from Green Lantern a lot of the time. Like, it downplays the superhero elements in favor of the more like Star Trek-y sci-fi elements, and it's one of my favorite Green Lantern runs they've ever done.
Yeah.
And it introduces this concept that there can be different kinds of willpower that can be used for the rings, and that the Guardians actually chose the will to overcome fear as the basis for their core just because it's the most common type of will, and that would cast the widest net for potential Green Lanterns. So if you think about it, like a normal Green Lantern ring being powered by the will to overcome fear is almost always shown as a lantern drawing on all of their strength to, like, meet a problem head on and push through until they solve it.
Right.
And that's great when the problem is something like a supervillain that needs to be defeated. But what happens when the problem is something much larger and more long-term, like institutional racism or class inequality?
Yeah.
And
yeah, where like a fist construct isn't very helpful.
Yeah, I don't think Hal Jordan.
Name one police force that's dealt with that.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think Hal Jordan would be a really good match to like go handle the problems in our cities.
He's just got a claw that removes like knees off of necks. Like,
Jeez, that is grim. Good
Like
God.
it's all stuff that can change, but it's an exhaustingly long-term fight, and you might
Yes.
not see results in your own lifetime.
Yeah.
So Joe's power, like her willpower, is the will to endure a lifelong struggle that may never give her payoff.
Right. Yeah, and the effect of that is that her ring recharges itself slowly over time. She doesn't need a lantern. It'll just slowly recharge itself. But it also means she's got to be careful about how she uses her ring, because she can't like run out and then just charge it up and then do more. She's got to kind of like ration her willpower a bit. So it forces her to be a little less, to Dan's point, a little less superhero-y and a little bit more like it's a tool for doing her kind of investigative detective side of the job.
Because there's only like a charging station every like 1,000 parsecs, and
I mean, it's that idea, but even without the charging station.
Sure, yeah.
and crucially, it's slow. Like it takes at one point in the story, she went all out helping like a disaster relief, and she got down to like 8%, and it took 5 days to get back up to 100.
I mean, the key is you really have to run it all the way out, because if you just recharge it by 8%, it's actually bad.
Because the next day she was like, I swear to God, this was just at 100. It's down to 20 right away. It's like, do I have apps open?
You know what the thing is when they update them, that's the problem.
Yeah. I like that concept in Far Sector of the different ring and the different kind of willpower. I think it worked great. And specifically, I do like that, Joe is a person of color, and she's dealing with kind of like social unrest in this sci-fi city. So I like that the power kind of matches that. And I do like that there's like it feels like there's an interesting path forward through her for Green Lanterns who are largely reduced to space cops, and that's like a real hard road, especially right now. So I love that book. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay. Next question.
Let's do it.
Comes from Jake Murphy. That's right. Oh god, fucking I have a feeling the names in this fucking episode are gonna be challenging.
What, a bunch of aliens? You're not gonna
Kurtzke RRR smash or pass.
Smash or pass.
Yeah.
That's a sentient math equation.
Yeah.
And I hate math, so pass.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Sentient math equation. I say smash. Just because that's a new experience.
I'm gonna divide and then multiply with them.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
I'm no square.
But I was gonna say I'm gonna have to add a bunch of self-esteem to get me there, but
to the power of me.
So sorry, we had 2 smashes and 1 pass.
Yeah.
There we go. You heard it here. The regular hosts of Dr. DC are just horny enough to fuck math.
Look, much like in my real life, I don't spend a lot of time trying to understand it. I just want to smash.
Jeez Louise. Goodness.
All right, next question.
All right.
Comes from Eric Warner, who asks, how well do you think a book focused only on alien lanterns would be handled at DC? I'm picturing a book focusing on rebuilding the BLC with Saint Walker, or a mentor story on the young lantern of Zudar, I forgot her name, with Salak or some other veteran lanterns besides Kilowog.
Yeah. So, Dan, we've gotten lots of different types of lantern books over the years, including like
Patio,
Red Lanterns, or like New Guardians, where we see like some members of different corps and stuff like that. Green Lantern Corps was always kind of like a bit more of like a team book, obviously. What would you want to see in a lantern book that maybe had nothing to do with the Earth Lanterns, focused on aliens? What would you like?
I mean, what I would like and what would sell are probably way different things.
True, fair.
Because like there really aren't many characters in this franchise I don't like on some level, and I would jump at the chance to see a book that had nothing to do with Earth or humans in it, but that doesn't usually go. Like they gave Larfleeze a book and it lasted about a year.
Yeah.
Even like I was gonna say Red Lanterns, but that book always had 1 to 2 humans in its main cast. Like
Right.
I think the most successful book about purely alien casts of like a Lantern Corps was Sinestro, and that had Sinestro in it. He's one of the most popular characters in the franchise. So I think you would need to anchor a book with an alien lantern that's super popular with everyone, who like is loved by everyone.
But that's not Kilowog.
Well,
it would have to be Kilowog, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting in the question that they bring up the Blue Lantern Corps specifically, because the Blue Lanterns have been like really kind of shit on over the years. Like their power was always weaker. Like their power was just being around and helping others, like, which is good, but like as far as like driving the action of a book, they were always kind of secondary. And then like their core got wiped out, and they just like there's been no real bounce back for the Blue Lanterns at all.
They lost 2 homeworlds.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough for them, and they're supposed to be like the Hope Lanterns, right? So
Jesus.
I think
there was a time. I'm sorry. There was a time where like Saint Walker was the only one left alive, and his blue ring was just kind of floating behind him, trying to get him to be a Blue Lantern again. But he just kept saying, "No, I'm sad."
Yeah, like he had no hope, but the ring hung around, which I mean, listen, that's depressing if you like the character of Saint Walker, but I actually really liked that image because it's like if you're one of those hopeful people, it never totally goes away.
Yeah.
And I did kind of like that as like an image, but yeah, I mean, I think it would be cool to have it'd be cool to get Blue Lanterns back in there. I don't think they could hold down their own book.
Yeah.
But if there was some kind of fun team up with Brother Warth was like an elephant, like a kind of like Ganesh style.
Oh yeah,
alien elephant.
Yeah.
Blue Lantern.
Super cool. Great design.
He was cool.
Yeah, I think you can do it. I think the reality is that especially for news stories, you always have to find a.
It's just my cat trying to get in.
Cool. You need to find a way in for the audience,
right?
And so I think that the more that like the characters in the world and stuff like that are distant from ourselves,
right?
The more challenging it is to find a way in. So as long as you have either like a very like Earth-like character that speaks very like the way we do, or a world in which is something that we recognize, or you bring in a like a human of some sorts to act as the audience. I just think that there needs to be a way in for people that you can then reflect on yourself. But
yeah, I think that's probably true. You need some kind of like human element. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best runs of a Lantern book that dealt with like a massive alien cast was the Tomasi and Gleason Green Lantern Corps, which like that cast was like 8 or 10 characters, and 2 of them were human. It was Kyle and Guy, but most of the focus was on everybody else. It was on Sodomya and Aricia. It was on Isama and Vath. It was on Mogo and Buzzed. It's Stella and the Green Men were in there. It was the first time Mogo got some characterization for a long time. Like, I think as long as you have like some kind of anchor, you can kind of go nuts as long as you really go for it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, totally.
All right, next question. It comes from Greg Fine.
Oh, he's so fine.
Oh, couldn't be more okay because he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
Yeah,
he's Greg.
All
It'll
right.
be okay.
Yeah.
Who asks? Oh, fucking goddamn names. What are Isamut, Call, and Vath Sarn up to? I miss having 2 working class dudes from Ran and Thanagar hanging around.
I just want to jump in real quick before I get Dan's opinion on this, just to tell you that. So, Isamat, Call, and Vath Sarn, they're from Thanagar and Ran.
Yeah.
And those were two planets that were at war
Yeah.
during Infinite Crisis.
Yes.
But Isamat Kal is not like a hawk.
Okay.
He's
Weird.
like a lizard person. There's like a lizard race
Oh,
on Thanagar. So he's like a lizard man.
cool.
Yeah. It's kind of dope. Dan, what do you think of like the sort of unlikely buddy cop energy of Isamat Kal and Vath Sarn? Because for me, it feels like they had a kind of like Lethal Weapon thing where one was like had like
Racist against Jewish people.
Well, I was not quite like that, but like I meant like one was like very rule following, the other was like kind of unhinged and violent.
Oh, yeah, that.
No, God. Now I'm just trying to figure out which one of them would be Mel Gibson.
Uh-oh.
Oh, God. I mean, I love their dynamic. It was so much fun, especially like it held together so nicely since they were both like military men. So
Right.
they looked at being recruited into the Green Lantern Corps as like this duty that they had to uphold, but they were constantly trying, like they wanted so badly to rip each other's throats out, but they couldn't because they were on the job together now.
Yeah.
And like seeing that friendship grow over time, like I have no doubt that if one of you lost your legs, the other would cut their own legs off and let them be surgically implanted on the first one, because you'll just grow more legs back.
As long as it's daddy's third leg.
Yeah, you lose your leg and you just get like a couple penises in place of them.
I mean, look, you cut that thing in half and it'll work as two of my
It's
legs.
all I have going for me. I'm not giving it to you.
I mean, that's not what you said last night.
Good Lord. I did set that up.
I'm horny.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I really like these characters. I think I like the sort of idea of, if they never fully like ran with it, but I like the idea of the sort of like, you two deserve each other, like the kind of like,
yeah.
we don't get along, we see things kind of differently.
Sure,
You know,
yeah.
like I always kind of dig that sort of element of it. I think that's neat. I also like the idea of like exploring the dynamic in the core of planets that have animosity with each other.
Yeah.
That for so much of the rest of the core, they come from different sectors and their planets are far apart and stuff like that. You might not always have a like, well, we always hated Zudar or, like whatever. But in this case, like a planet got moved. They both like were like in close quarters and had this sort of interesting like internal dynamic of like, well, we hate each other, but now we're supposed to work together kind of thing. Yeah.
That's fun.
What do you, Dan, offhand, do you know when is the last time that they would have like shown up meaningfully? Is it still like John's era, like New 52, or?
Probably because they're both dead.
Oh, right.
So they both. So Vath was one of the Lanterns who went with John Stewart into the Dark Sector during the most recent series, and Isamat stayed behind to watch over their sector. And when the central battery exploded, Isamat died in space, and Vath got killed by bounty hunters.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. I think in my head, that book, I feel like that book came out really slowly, and I sort of forgot the beginning of the book by the end of the book.
Sure.
But also, I just forgot like the specificity of characters dying. Normally when Lanterns die in space, I go like, well, we didn't need those ones. I never really register that they were actual characters.
Yeah, there's so much, like the benefit to having like thousands of Lanterns is that there's so much cannon fodder that you can keep the named ones around. But like this run is like, yeah, we'll kill off Isman Vath and Aricia and Kyle, I guess, or something. He got better. He's fine. But yeah, well, I mean, if in a few months we're allegedly getting a pair of new Green Lantern books by different writers, so I imagine they'll be back.
Yeah, and we just had a Dark Crisis, and they never said specifically that like people were coming back from the dead from it, but the window's always open.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next question.
Hit me.
From Arpit Patal, who asks, in your guys' opinion, does Fatality actually love John Stewart?
Okay. So fatality. You remember we've talked every time we talk about Jon Stewart, we have to talk about Xanshi,
Yes.
the planet that he was too fucking proud to save.
Yes.
And it blows up. Fatality is the survivor of Xanshi.
Okay.
And like hated him for years and years and years.
Sure.
And then she became a Star Sapphire, and she was like, "It's okay, I forgive you, and I love you too." But then there was a question of whether or not that was real.
Okay.
Whether A, it was the real her, because I think there was like an impersonator sort of thing, or B, whether the Star Sapphire thing is more of a brainwash than true forgiveness. So I would love to get Dan's opinion on that whole saga.
Yes, so for the longest time, it seemed like, oh, maybe this is just the ring forcing her to love him, because like she became a Star Sapphire by like getting abducted by the Zamarons and put into a machine that brainwashed her and then gave her a ring, and then all of a sudden she loves Jon Stewart. But then like there was a whole, I think it was a war against the Durlans, this race of shapeshifters, and they start. That's why there's gonna be an opening soon. And
oh, there will be. There was last night.
Jesus.
And a bunch of lanterns were getting replaced, and by Durlans that could use their rings and all this stuff. And we actually like that story actually shows us the point where she got replaced. So up until then, we know it was the real her that was like loving Jon. But then after that story, she didn't get her ring back, and like her full personality reemerged and was like super pissed off at all this.
So here's my question for you, because I think the Star Sapphires, a part of this is because they got retconned into this position. Star Sapphire as a character, as a villain or whatever, was around in the Silver Age, and then during this whole emotional spectrum thing, they got kind of wedged into this position that they're powered by love and all this stuff. But I think they have some of the murkiest like mythos and mythology because of that. Because, for example, there's a lot of like kind of just general like abduction themes, like Carol Ferris getting shanghaied into being a Star Sapphire, all this kind of stuff. Their emotional entity is called the Predator, who back in the Silver Age was like a different personality, and it was like a possessed guy that was obsessed with Carol and all this kind of stuff. This thing with fatality also makes this kind of like murky, like, is it love, you know? And I think we always think of the Indigo Corps, the Indigo Lanterns, as the ones that are like forcing compassion, right? Because that was like the whole idea, like these dangerous criminals like are forced to feel empathy. But do you think that like the case is made too that very few Star Sapphires, or maybe some a decent proportion of Star Sapphires, need that ring, or they don't believe in the things they espouse?
There definitely is a degree to that. Like it's way less now than it used to be, because it used to be to become a Star Sapphire, you had this gem put on your head and it just overwrote your personality completely. And actually the reason they changed that was like, I think at the beginning of the Jon's run, Hal Jordan like shoved that gem onto the head of one of the Zamarons who run the Star Sapphire Corps, and they were like, oh my god, that's awful, let's make these rings instead so they don't control you as bad. But like I think like Carol specifically isn't affected by it anymore, just because she's had so much exposure over her life. But like in general, like it's even in the best case scenario, like with that one Sapphire Miri, it's the power is presented as this like intoxicating thing that in a generally positive way gives you a completely new outlook on life and your role in it. But still it's not a passive force, really.
And I guess there's also the sort of thing that's established too, where the further out from the middle of the emotional spectrum you are, the more the emotion controls you versus the other way around, right? Will's dead center. fear and hope, that's you kind of manifest that thing. But then the further out you get to greed, to anger, to compassion, to love, the more it kind of runs your show.
Okay.
Like the more extreme they are, I guess. So I guess
Yeah.
there's part of that too. So let's double back to the question and just definitively, we know that we saw fatality post all of this stuff, and that she was, furious at John again and stuff like that. Do you think at any point she genuinely loved Jon Stewart?
Well, there is a definitive answer. Because as of the most recent DC Valentine's Day special, which I read because I'm a cool guy,
Nice.
yeah, the idea is that the Star Sapphire ring didn't make her love John. It amplified feelings that were already there.
Right.
So on some level, she does love him. I personally just think that's pretty fucked up since he's directly involved in her planet exploding.
I mean, I agree. Yeah, it's kind of messed up.
It's like me and the doctor after I've had tequila.
What?
Just amplifies my feelings towards him.
All right. That's easy.
All right.
How many drinks did you have before we
I had
started
like 2
recording?
beers. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you're 3 sheets to the wind then. Yeah. All right,
Should I
let's
have
do it.
started?
They were.
Should I have started drinking all this coffee yet, or when are we getting to that?
Oh God, you don't want that in your life.
No, but if you do, mix it with barbecue.
Yeah. Oh God, truly the worst farts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That room must have been disgusting after we were done.
Yeah. So disgusting. It's being abandoned entirely. We record at my house.
That's
now.
the only reason why.
That's the reason.
Yep. Next question comes from a different location. We're leaving Twitter and heading on over to Instagram.
Now we're going to Instagram, take some questions and answer them. I think I shifted keys halfway through that
I think you may have.
because breathing is hurting.
Oh,
Threw my back out reaching for a coffee.
at least it was nothing embarrassing. First question comes from Dem Jankies, who asks, Carol Ferris and the Star Sapphire have a complicated history. Why did she willingly join the Corps when they became Ringslingers after all those years of alternate personalities and mind control?
Right. We talked about the gem and all that stuff. So Dan, why was Carol so willing to stay on board?
If I recall, it was because she was shown a vision of Hal being in imminent danger in the not too distant future, and she was compelled to go in and help him.
Right.
Yeah. Also, there's this doesn't get addressed very often, but there is kind of an underlying selfishness to Carol's love too.
Right.
Because her dream since she was a little girl was to fly planes, and when her dad got sick and eventually died, she had to take his place as the head of their corporation.
Right.
So now the only time she gets to fly is as a Star Sapphire, where
Right.
she can just step off of the earth and soar whenever she wants to. And she's even told Kyle Rayner before, there was a whole stint where she and Hal were on the outs, and she tried dating Kyle because in her mind, if she didn't make herself love someone, her ring might leave her and choose someone else.
Yeah.
And she didn't want that to happen, not because she was concerned about not being a superhero and helping people or anything, but because she didn't want to lose the ability to fly. So
yeah. And
yeah.
I do think that kind of other that sort of underbelly of the love emotion, the sort of selfish thing, is also part of the predator to the emotional entity. I do find it interesting that one in particular as a core feels like it really has a shades of gray kind of approach, instead of it just being yeah, love, it's great, we love everybody. There's a real dark
Like a
streak.
menace. Yeah.
There's a menace. Exactly, that's a good way to put it.
It makes me wonder where Jeff Johns was in his life when he came up with all this, because okay, the embodiment of love is going to be named the Predator, and it's going to be a giant dinosaur bug that wants to control and eat people.
Yeah.
But we find out that there's actually 7 of them. And
I mean, 7 colors.
Yeah,
Roy G.
Jesus
Biv, baby.
Fucking Anyways, next.
I like to imagine that like Jeff Johns sits down at his computer to write, and he takes out 7 Post-it notes and he just puts them on the wall in
What
front
will
of
these
him.
be?
Yeah, it's like I've got 6 issues to get through 7 ideas.
Like, I haven't read his Shazam book, but I'm assuming somewhere in there he retcons it so the exclamation point after the word is also from a god, so there can be 7 of them.
I mean, that's funny. I mean, he did make the 7 magic lands because he couldn't re-spell Shazam. I think is maybe
That's so
the
funny.
compromise that was made.
There's no silent Q at the beginning of Shazam now.
He just put another Z in there.
That's
He's like,
very funny.
shit, I gotta find another Z
Shazam.
god. Yeah. Zoroastra. Zarathustra.
There we go. All right, next question comes from the Multi Sanchez, who asks, who were the first Green Lanterns after the Manhunters?
Ooh, yeah. I think there was an arc in the last like 5-10 years that actually showed like the first lanterns. Dan, do you have like a better memory of that than I do?
I mean, this is honestly constantly changing.
Sure.
Because like there's like the arc you're probably thinking of comes from Green Lanterns, the Simon and Jessica book.
Yes. Yeah.
Where they travel back like a billion years or however long it was, where the Guardians were like in imminent danger, and they just finished the prototype rings, and there was like the first, I forget how many, like 7 or 10 or something, probably 7 Green Lantern rings.
That'd be really funny if it's 7. Yeah.
And Simon and Jessica have to actually like figure out how to train the original wave of lanterns when their rings aren't like, they didn't perfect the rings yet. They have no fail safes on them. It's just like way too much power for anybody, and nobody who knows what they're doing.
Right.
And there was like, I forget their names, but there was a Kal Yuan in there. There was like one of the first like Earth elementals was in there. There was a Daxamite, a White Martian. Like, it was all these like really cool ideas and characters that only got to show up in this one story because it took place like at the beginning of time.
Right. And it was all about like that arc had like Volthoom and stuff in it, right? Yeah. So that's the most recent one. That's 100% the one I was thinking of. But what are some of the other, do we know offhand what are some of the other versions of the first lanterns? I got to imagine one version of it is just, and then we just picked 3,600 of you. Like, it's just like no explanation, and then we just did this.
Yeah, there have been some where it's like it's just some alien guy they picked.
Right.
There's been others. Like, there was even one in the animated movie Green Lantern Emerald Knights, where they came up with like, here's the 4 or 5 people that we're giving the first set of rings to, but we're not telling you how they work for some reason. You can figure it out. And the one, I think his name was like Avra or something like that. He was the first one to figure out that you could like really focus and make constructs. So he's technically like the first, we think of as a Green Lantern.
It's super shitty of the Guardians to do that thing where it's like, here's like a weapon of unimaginable power. There's no instruction manual. But it does feel like there would be interesting potential in a mini series or something of early lanterns, in the way that like the Green Lantern Earth 1 book, even though it takes place like now, it's essentially like they start from scratch again, right? Like there is this kind of like
constructs,
development of the power and stuff like that. That's sort of interesting. That would be kind of cool.
I like
in
that.
A way. Yeah.
Have they really not done anything like that, eh?
Not more than just like a couple of issues in an arc or things like that.
Yeah, that would be rad. I like that.
Yeah, they like to periodically go back and retcon new stuff into the history, like the early history of the Corps, or like the history of the Guardians in general, since they've been alive for so long. I think they're still the oldest race in the DC universe.
Yes, I think that was the idea, right? Well, it's tough because they used to claim that
like life started on Maltus or
Yeah,
something.
they claimed that life started on Maltus. Blackest Night retconned that as life starting on Earth, but it was unclear if that just meant Malthusians started on Earth or if it meant that something predated them.
Yeah, but like in general, all the things we know about their history is so far apart. It's like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years apart from each other. So like every time a new writer comes onto the book, they add a new devastating series of events somewhere into the Guardians' past, and usually that has something to do with when powering technology was being developed.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Nice.
Next question comes from the Little Pasty, who asks, what is the origin of Archillo from the Sinestro Corps?
Yeah, Archillo, just, you've probably seen him, in books. Like years ago, we read Blackest Night and that, but Archillo is like, he's more or less the Sinestro Corps' Kilowog. They're not the same like type of alien, but he's like a great big guy. I think he did do some training kind of thing, but he's like sort of like a big, like, right hand man sort of scenario for Sinestro.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dan, what's the origin of Archillo? What's his deal?
He was being really mean and scary on a planet, and then a ring flew up to him.
I do kind of love the simplicity of that with a lot of Sinestro Corps members, where they're just like, "Oh shit, you're fucking scary. Here, be more scary."
Yeah, the thing I love about the Sinestro Corps is how almost lax their recruitment standards are, because their purpose was never to actually win the war they were starting. They just had to push the Green Lantern Corps so far that the Guardians would change their rules to make them run more like Sinestro thought they should run.
Yeah, I mean, they were essentially like terrorists. They weren't like, yeah.
Oh wow.
I think there was a sort of lost potential. We didn't really get to explore it, of Jessica Cruz getting a Sinestro Corps ring, but it's about like mastery of fear as opposed to being scary. Like, again, there's another side to these things, and Jessica obviously got a Green Lantern ring because she could overcome fear, but there was this like little brief period around Future State and stuff like that where it's like, are we going to explore that she is in such control of the emotion of fear that she kind of changes what the Sinestro Corps is?
Sure, yeah.
And I feel like that was a missed opportunity, a sort of lost promise a little bit. But
yeah, and maybe we'll still get to see it, because I've seen was it Williamson who wrote Dark Crisis.
Yes, yeah.
That Dark Crisis is technically happening like in the not too distant future, whatever that means.
Right.
So like there's a discrepancy between like what ring Jessica has. So I'm hoping we'll see a little more with that, but maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, I would love it. I think it'd be cool, but yeah, I almost feel like that's been swept away, but we'll see. Yeah.
And Archillo, like he's got recruited just because he was terrifying, but he went on like such an arc where, like, once Sinestro got the opportunity to show the universe what it would be like if he was in charge of protecting it, all of a sudden there were people that actually loved and appreciated the Sinestro Corps, and Archillo found out that he really genuinely likes being like all of this good feedback from people. He likes having a more like heroic slant to him, and he genuinely formed a friendship with Saint Walker from Blue Lanterns.
Yeah, because Archillo and Saint Walker and representatives from all of the Corps were all on that, like the New 52 New Guardians team. And yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting too, especially because so much of the Archillo before that is in the context of like Sinestro Corps War of Light, and Blackest Night, where he's just there to be scary and to be an adversary. it's neat to then throw him in a position where it's like, no, you need to have like dialogue and like interactions and teamwork with people, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's always nice to see characters like that get that kind of growth when he was literally just introduced to be the big evil counterpart to Kilowog.
Yeah. Yeah, nice.
All right. Next question comes from Delgado Andrew, who asks, we all know Mogo doesn't socialize, but has he ever had any run-ins with other living planets? I guess there's ranks from what I see, but how about Marvel crossover with Ego or any smaller genius Loki like Danny the Street?
Right. So during Sinestro Corps War, Mogo, which is a living sentient planet, which is a Green Lantern, goes up against Ranks, the sentient city. But what are there any other instances of Mogo interacting with other living planets, or genius loci like Danny the Street, or things like that?
So during the New Guardians series, like the second half of it, when it was Kyle as a White Lantern,
right,
he comes across this like desolate world, and there's something about it he recognizes, and he kind of goes down into its core and realizes like, oh my god, this is like a dead planet. This was a living planet like Mogo, but it's dead now. And he uses some mixture of his White Lantern power and the life equation. It's murky,
right,
and brings it back to life, only to find that actually this is, I think it was like Mogo's brother or something like that. I don't know how planet families work, but Mogo actually killed this guy because he was like a planet serial killer, basically. And Mogo had to put him out of its misery.
That's fucking so rad.
Which is the coolest goddamn concept of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, that is kind of neat. Yeah.
Like, Mogo is always so chill. So, like, the idea of him being like, I have to kill you so you don't kill everyone else.
Yeah.
That's so
funny. Mogo snaps this other planet's neck.
I like the idea of a planet trying to like sneak up on somebody.
Yeah, dude.
A planet holding a giant knife is just slowly.
Why do you have this giant like universe-sized plastic sheeting?
Okay, here I'm gonna pitch something. A group of planets just finished watching a supernova, and they go out and like through a black hole, and in the black hole, another planet's waiting for them. And as they die, all the moons of the one planet like fall off.
Yeah. That's nice. I like your. Are you creating Bat Planet?
Yeah.
No, now they're gonna have to figure out how to shoehorn that into every TV show and movie.
Hey, Teen Titans Go writers, you have free fair use of that. If you can make like a Batman origin but with Mogo and other like planets,
I'm here for
it. Use it. Yeah.
Mogo, right. Where did you find piano wire that size?
That would be such a worse way for Batman to see his parents die. Like, getting shot, very traumatic, whatever.
Like, bang,
but like, if he watches both of his parents get garroted in an alley, it's like, holy shit.
All right, next question comes from Robbie's Just This Guy, who asks, what's the Cat and Red Lantern Corps' deal?
Dexter!
Yeah.
He's got such a sad story.
Was anything like thrown into like a river or something?
And his owner got like murdered or something, like a home invasion or something like that. I'm butchering a little bit, but he gets like beaten in the street and like put in a bag and thrown in a river and stuff. Dan, Dexter has a tragic origin, but can you talk maybe about Dexter as a Red Lantern? Because I think it's interesting that it's like an Earth house cat gets a lantern.
Yeah, I was so disappointed when his origin came out and he was from Earth, because he's like a bright blue cat in space.
Yeah.
And he was I think he was originally just thrown into a group shot as like a space filler joke by the artist. I think it was Shane Davis at the time. Like, he just drew his cat and put a lantern costume on it. But yeah, as a character, he's like comedically, like he's got that Chucky vibe a little bit, where he's like, it's this little weird looking cute thing that you wouldn't think could kill a whole like school bus full of people, but you can.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the
yeah.
more you kind of get to see him in action, the more he kind of like, he doesn't warm up to people, but like you start to understand that, like, oh yeah, he's just kind of, he's out for revenge and is only like killing the people that he thinks are getting in the way of that revenge.
What I kind of like about the Earth House Cat thing, and I won't say I've read everything that Dexter is in, so maybe something will contradict this, but I like the idea that even though we get like a sort of like super realism thing where Dexter can say like "good kitty" and like stuff like that, which a normal cat can't. I do like the idea that like mentally, even that kind of advancement has a limit. That still fundamentally it's a cat that just responds to its chosen owner, in this case like Atrocitus.
Yeah.
And for the most part it's just like you're good, you're bad, and there's very little like navigating of
Like
it,
nuance
like
of
just
it
kind of
between,
acts like a cat that's been allowed to say a few words.
Yeah.
And I like that application of like the universal translator of the ring, like, because like if it's really going to let you translate all of these wild alien species, then if you gave it to a cat or dog or something, then something should come through.
But also, like, it's a fucking cat brain, so it's not gonna like have nuanced opinions on things. It's gonna just be like very linear and binary.
Dexter never gets like thrown in the blood ocean though, right? So the Red Lanterns, like when you first get a Red Lantern, you're like a berserker. But then there's some like blood magic that you could do on Yasmalt that will like give you your sort of like consciousness back. That never happened with Dexter, right?
I don't believe so, but at the same time, a berserker Red Lantern is kind of cat level already. So
yeah, that's true.
He does drink some of Rancor's blood though. And Rancor is like another human Red Lantern. He's also for some reason the one of the only Red Lanterns who can make constructs. And because blood magic is a big deal for the Red Lanterns, if you drink his blood, you gain the ability to make constructs. So for a long time, Dexter was like flying around as one of the only Red Lanterns that could build stuff with his ring, and is kind of the only reason Atrocitus stayed alive after Guy stole his ring.
Right. Nice.
All right. Well, let's go to the next question from the real Josh Gill, who asks, does each corps have a heavy, like Kilowog for the Green Lanterns? Sinestro Corps has Arkillo, and who's the heavy for the others?
Ooh, interesting. Dan, what do you think?
I guess kind of. I mean, I guess Monk would be it for the Indigo tribe, since he's like, I forget his exact backstory. I think he was military before he got like brainwashed and stuff.
Right.
It should probably be Fatality for the Sapphires.
Yeah.
The blue, I mean, if push comes to shove, I guess Warth for the Blue Lanterns, but like that's mostly just because he's an elephant. I don't think that any of them actually want to fight you.
Well, yeah, and it's also interesting to say like who's your heavy hope hitter.
Sure, yeah.
You know, like that's kind of like a funny.
Wouldn't that be like the smallest, friendliest one?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I think that's where I'm going with this. Right? It's like, you know, the Green Lanterns have to like fight. You know, Kilowog is like a big heavy hitter. He trains them. Arkillo has to be scary and big and stuff like that. The Reds with the rage, you know, it's probably the one with the most rage or whatever. But I think the argument could be made that Atrocitus kind of has the heavy hitter thing covered there. You know, for greed.
Yeah, but is like Kilowog the big, like the heavy hitter of the
I guess he's not like the willpower.
Yeah, I feel like they're talking about a tank, right?
No, you're right. You're right. I went off script. Yeah.
So I feel like we're talking about like the tank.
Then yeah, I guess it is Brother Warth for the Blues.
Yeah, who's might like the be big Mogo then? I don't know.
Oh yeah, it could be. Yeah, Mogo's.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't get much bigger than that.
Mogo's a good call there. I mean, to the point where it's like Mogo has all these like extra responsibilities. Like Mogo is the one that sends the rings to find replacements. And
Oh,
stuff
really?
Like yeah, yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think of like Larfleeze is the only Orange Lantern, but the core are constructs of the basically like the consciousnesses he's stolen from people he's killed.
Whoa.
So I was just trying to think of like the only one I can think of is Glomulus, but I can't remember what the other constructs are.
And he's the good boy. He's not the heavy.
Especially in all that like Art Baltazar artwork, like the really cute version of Glomulus is
Sure.
adorable. Yeah.
He's literally Slimer, just orange.
Yeah, he is.
Love
Yeah.
that. Love that. All right, then. Let's leave Instagram and head on over to the Discord.
Oh.
Discord.
Shut the fuck up, man. I'm gonna
Just
get there.
Sing it.
Yeah, sing it.
I would dox 500 scored, and I would score 500 dox just to be the dox that scored 1,000 dox to dox scored at your scored.
It's even sadder live.
Fuck yeah.
Dan, what was that like to witness?
It's honestly everything I thought it would be.
Genius incarnate.
That's such a good way of saying I hated it.
It's bad. Like
It's
assumed.
everything I thought it would be. I love how you managed to say nothing with such nice words.
Just fold my arms, say expectations have been met.
Yeah.
That sounds like us.
All right. First question from Siege the Box, who says,
Oh, easy.
Siege that box.
Jeez. It's been 7 years.
It's been a fortnight since the last time I'd sieged that box.
Only a fortnight? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
2 weeks.
We ain't seen Colonel Angus round these parts.
I love that so much. Siege the Box asks, in Green Lanterns, Simon Baz briefly heals Bleeze, and she loses her rage. When this happens, Bleeze's bone wings become feathered wings. How does losing her rage make her bone wings suddenly grow flesh and feathers?
Yeah, so Bleeze comes from like a paradise planet and had these kind of beautiful bird wings. But yeah, she's a Red Lantern. When you see her, it's just the skeleton of her wings. Although I think that's actually from torture and stuff previous to being a Red Lantern. But Dan, I'd be curious about your thoughts on when she's healed of the like Red Lantern rage. Why do you think her wings regenerated?
I mean, I think it's two things happening at once, because Simon's whole deal is that he mysteriously has the power to will people to be in like better physical health.
Right.
Like
God,
he brought
he
brought his brother-in-law. I'm like, what the hell do you call your wife's husband?
Depend what
he
part of
brought
the country
Sorry,
you're
hang
in.
on. What do you call your wife's husband?
Wait, damn it, your sister.
In the way is what I call him.
The guy I like to watch fuck.
Jesus.
What are family members get? Your sister's husband? Yeah, whatever.
I'm my own grandpa.
Oh no.
He was in a coma, and Simon used his ring to will him out of the coma. And ever since then, he's been able to like spontaneously heal people. And I think he was just like sort of healing Bleeze in general, both to counteract the effects of the ring on her body, and maybe to like also restore the damage done to her wings.
Right, because it's not it's less about when the rage leaves and more about the fact that she's just being healed. And part of what that does is purge the rage, and part of what that does is fix the wings.
Yeah, Simon's healing ability has never been explained or adequately explored, but I am holding out hope.
Neither has his like Emerald Sight like prophecy powers, right?
Right. Yeah, it feels like there was an idea there that never got to play out, and that what's funny is that the most recent run just ended early, right after evolving the concept in some way that has still very ambiguous and unexplored.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with giving these like weird abilities to Simon, because like spontaneously doing this stuff that you thought was impossible is kind of a Green Lantern thing that everybody gets to do at some point. It would just be nice to flesh it out a little bit.
Yeah, it'd be nice to actually explore it and then go, okay, cool. So that's his deal. Yeah.
Mhm. All right. Next question comes from Butt Fart. Who asks, has Arcus Chummock been featured in any story arcs after Blackest Night?
Gross name.
I had too much to eat tonight. I'm gonna Arcus Chummock.
Isn't Chummock the restaurant across from the Krabby Patty?
Nice.
The Arcus Chum Bucket. Arcus Chummock is the guy that kind of like sort of looks like a wolf man, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, he's been like, if you've seen a Green Lantern crowd shot since the Silver Age, he's been in it. You know,
Yes.
he's like, it's like him, it's the dude with the fishbowl head, it's like all these guys, they all hang out. I don't think he's been featured since Blackest Night. Outside of like background shots and stuff like that.
Is he one of the Lost Lanterns? Has he been with that group?
No.
Okay. Who am I? I don't know who I'm thinking of. There's too many goddamn lanterns.
Yes.
I read. Why did I go back and read a bunch of Lost Lantern stuff? It was for one of these questions. Shit.
All right.
Well, it's good that I did all that research.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Arcus Chummock. I think you even see him in the cartoons, like in the Justice League Unlimited, and the couple of episodes where you see like the core. He's there, and he kind of has like he looks just like a very hairy individual. He's kind of got a Wolfman sort of deal going on.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the next question, which comes from the marvelous Ryan, who asks, if I'm arguing with my friends about who the most powerful lantern is, fucking sounds like a cool guy.
Hey guys, come over on Friday. What are we gonna do? I don't know. How about we argue about the lanterns?
Oh my god!
I mean, that's why I
was
showed
invited
up.
to the coolest party ever.
Dan's like, don't threaten me with a good time.
He goes on to say, would it be cheating to say the Anti-Monitor?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
There is that brief period of time where the Anti-Monitor, well, don't they treat him like a guardian, right? Like he's like the guardian of the Sinestro Corps or something, but he's essentially a Sinestro Corps member.
I mean, he literally just showed up and wore the t-shirt. I don't think he counts.
And I guess as far as like your friend debate rules go, you have to decide, is it who is the most powerful with regard to their lantern powers, where we know like Hal is a more powerful Green Lantern than like fucking Tomar Ray or something like that, you know? Is the Anti-Monitor the most powerful because of the Yellow Lantern?
Or is he just
ring?
most powerful?
Or is he just the most powerful because you found like a cosmic like necessity and then you put a ring on it?
Yes.
You know?
Well, I don't remember him even having a ring. I think
I don't think he did.
Yeah, he was just wearing the uniform.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't count.
I don't think it counts. And I would extend that to some of the other people that got rings too. Like Superboy Prime, I don't think is a super powerful Sinestro Corps member. He is super powerful and was a Sinestro Corps member, but I don't know that those are the same thing.
No, there was during Blackest Night, there were some, I think, Adventure Comics tie-ins where we got to see him. Oh God, wait! I'm having trouble remembering now if he actually got these rings or if Black Lanterns were just seeing the emotions in him, because we started to see him flash like love and rage and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. I
mean, it's a murky question because different lanterns are more and less powerful depending on when you're talking about, and also, what do you define as a lantern? Is it anyone that uses lantern power in general, or do they have to have a ring? Like, are we counting Ion in this? Are we counting Guardians? Like,
Right. Yeah. I mean, let's say for the purposes of, defining this a bit and trying to answer the question, let's say of those that wear a ring, a lantern ring from any color core, who is the most powerful lantern? So it's not about power they have outside of lanterning. It's who channels the most of their respective lantern abilities. Is the answer just Hal? This is really boring.
I mean, I think Larfleeze is up there because
Yeah, sure.
he's
That's
as
a good
powerful
call.
as he's the only Orange Lantern, and he carries around his central battery as his battery, so he's as powerful as a core.
And I do love that concept of like, because it's greed or whatever, that part of what he takes from the people he kills is like an imprint of like them.
Oh wow.
Like he's not taking their souls strictly speaking, but he is like taking some sort of
Essence
or some sort of like facsimile of their consciousness. Because
Sure.
like Glomulus, like he can make constructs that operate independently.
Wow.
So like
Yeah.
they can think, and that's such a neat, kind of terrifying and fascinating ability of the Orange Lantern. I think you're right. Larfleeze is probably the right call there. He has all the power of an entire core in him.
Wow.
And also, whenever he makes a copy of you right before he kills you, his ring's readout voice just says "identity stolen," and then you die.
That's crazy.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say he was powerful enough that the Guardians were like, "Well, sorry, Vega system, no justice for you."
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, like the White Lantern should be the answer to this, but
Right.
like that's another case of like they have this idea, but they didn't really know what to do with it after Blackest Night was over.
Right.
So like we don't even definitively know that a lantern with the power of life can bring the dead back to life because they haven't really done it without the help of outside influence.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Interesting.
All right. Well, let's go to the next question from Only Just Dandon again, who asks, "Can you tell me more about Boudica? What stories
That was it. That's why I read the Lost Lanterns shit.
What stories has she been involved in?" Well, it's a Japanese city where in the 70s a lot of bands recorded and released
No,
albums.
not Budokan.
Oh, different?
Live at also, is Budokan a city or is it like a venue?
I think it's a city.
'Cause
I think it's a Japanese city.
Because isn't the Cheap Trick album live at Budokan? Which
Yes.
just feels like a weird phrase. You wouldn't say like live at New York.
I don't know. Good question.
At any rate, I like that you went for the Budokan.
Thank you. I thought you'd appreciate it.
I like learning that the only alien lantern you've ever heard of before tonight was Kilowog.
Hell yeah. I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I know who Sinestro is. That counts as an alien.
I got Cheap Trick stuck in my head now.
Yeah.
Mom is all right. Dad is all right. They just seem a little weird.
Doc scored.
Doc scored.
Woo!
Yeah, let's talk about Boudica, because I think it's interesting that this character goes through a lot of shit, and it feels like it always gets worse. Like every time they recover from something, a worse thing is visited on them.
Yeah, God, like she was one like for a long time, like I guess she would have been a contestant for Lantern Heavy for her core for a while, because she was the kind of lantern where if the Green Lantern Corps had to fight Lobo, you would bring in Boudica to do it, and she would have fun doing it.
Yeah,
Like,
she kind of like reveled in that. She like sought battle and stuff like that.
Yeah, she was kind of like the Klingon kind of tropey for alien warrior. She was one of the lanterns that tried to stop Hal in Emerald Twilight. He ended up cutting her hand off.
Yeah,
and then he insisted, "Oh, it wasn't that bad, you know."
Yeah, and then so the Lost Lanterns, they basically get like put in suspended animation. Like the Lost Lanterns were some of the ones that were, I'm gonna mess up the terminology here. Are the Lost Lanterns specifically ones that get like abandoned in space during the whole Emerald Twilight thing?
They are specifically the ones that tried to stop Hal on the way to Oa.
Right. But then
Yeah.
they also like they end up in suspended animation. All of this is like retcons that they're not dead in space. And they get used to like power the Manhunter robots.
Yeah, because Cyborg Superman was setting himself up as the leader of the Manhunter robots and needed, like, I don't know, he was using them as like Matrix batteries to power the robots.
Yeah. Which is bad enough. And then after all that, and then she comes back and they're like, hey, you're great. Here's a promotion. Do you want a promotion? Do you want to be an Alpha Lantern? By the way, Alpha Lanterns, we're gonna like jam a computer in your head kind of thing. They like make them like, and then she gets kind of overridden during Final Crisis sort of thing. So she's not even like really in control of herself again.
Wow.
I feel like it's
like you put it nicely. They basically took like a sharp ice cream scoop and just like took out all of her human parts.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's because the idea of the Alpha Lanterns is that was supposed to be like internal affairs.
Oh, sure.
So they had to be like the Guardians fucking learn nothing. They're like, so should we make them emotionless? Should we make them a machine that can be easily reprogrammed?
Some sort of like hunter of
men, that no man can escape.
Yeah.
Fucking Guardians. Yeah, I feel like Boudica really went through it. Boudica is featured in some Green Lantern animated stuff. I think she's in Emerald Knights or First Flight.
She's definitely in First Flight.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she's in that Daffy Duck episode where he becomes a Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
For a while, her sister became a Green Lantern too, while she was still an Alpha Lantern.
Yeah, I think ultimately Boudica is like a character that is there like to suffer. And I don't know if people just go like, well, this bad thing happened, so that now you're on a path of like poor decision making or something, so another bad thing will happen. If I don't know if it's like lazy writing or if people are just like, isn't it horrible when like the most, when one of like your real heavies, as Dan put it, gets something bad happens. I don't know what it is about Boudica that is like, it's like a constant shit sandwich that gets handed. But
because I feel like for the first time around for like Emerald Twilight, they just wanted to use recognizable characters so that you would know they were not messing around here.
Yeah,
but after that, it just like it just kept snowballing.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. Next question comes from Lilith, who asks, how do you feel about the attempt to make Crib sympathetic? Did you think it worked? Do you think they should have done it at all?
Crib is a Sinestro Corps member that has like a rib cage on its back and like steals children and like stores them in like Crib. That's the name.
God.
Yeah. I'm not sure I know what the sympathetic turn is for Crib. Dan, do you want to speak to that?
I mean, the only thing I can think of is, I think it was during Sins of the Star Sapphire, the Green Lantern Corps story, where Crib was murdering Green Lanterns who have children and then stealing the children.
Jesus.
And I think...
Sounds sympathetic to me.
Yeah, I mean, we're all on board, right? Who hasn't?
I mean, I get it.
What do you think I was doing earlier? No. But I think it was during that story that it's kind of like dug into like how Crib like sees them as her children and how like she's saving them from being neglected by these terrible parents or whatever. I mean, it was a very like, it was like if the intention was to put us on Crib's side and sympathize with Crib a little bit, it was very flimsy. Right. Because it was literally like, hey, here's this horrific Lovecraftian horror that's slaughtering people and stealing babies in the night.
Right.
You're not gonna redeem that very easily.
Well, not with like a serial killer motivation. It's like, I'm liberating them from their fleshy prisons or like whatever. It's like, I don't know. That's like sympathetic.
Yeah.
That's,
Like in that same storyline, Crib like uses her her back rib cage to bite a Green Lantern in half. Like it's
Jesus.
I think Crib gets captured or something by Star Sapphire. So I don't know if maybe there's like with Fatality. I don't know if there's a thing where it's like feel love now. Like I don't know if that happens to Crib or not. I truly don't remember. But Crib is like terrifying in its own right.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the Sinestro Corps like invaded and took back most of their kidnapped members before they got changed.
Right.
All right. Well, time for the last question. This question is not so serious. It comes from JK.
It's a lot. Oh, I see. I was going to say it's a lot of buildup. I don't. Jesus.
JK asks, has Gnort shown up since his heyday in the JLI? Have they ever tried to grim and gritty him up, even as a parody of such moves with other characters?
They grim and grittied Gnort in the last
really?
in the last 2 years.
What? Oh God, no, not Gnort.
Dan, do you want to talk about this?
Are you?
I'm
trying to think of what you're.
I'll paint the picture. Dan DiDio is exiting, but a bunch of things were in progress. We sort of cobbled together a future state lineup, and it's this little mini event.
Oh,
and then some of the ideas end up sticking around in the actual books moving forward.
Sure.
But in Future State Green Lantern, where we see John Stewart and he's got a sword and he's like fighting on another planet, we see a buff as shit Gnort. He's
That's
so
fucked up.
He's like jacked and he's like, yeah, he's like fighting and he dies. And he's like, no.
I hate this.
God. See, when the only thing I could think of when you were talking about like a grim and gray Gnort was my least favorite Green Lantern thing ever made, which was the 2-issue miniseries Guy Gardner Collateral Damage.
Ooh.
Where it was this god awful story with horrible art, and they drew Gnort as this like pissed off grizzly bear kind of looking guy, and he was like angry and hated life all the time, and like all of his dialogue boiled down to like, hey, fuck you, Guy Gardner, I hate this.
No, I hate this. This sucks.
I'm trying to look up the Future State Gnort to show you.
I hate that.
No,
I mean, if anybody wants to see current Gnort, look no further than like this month's issue of the Human Target, because he's in that story by Tom King and Greg Smallwood right now.
There's Gnort in Future State.
Oh, I hate that.
Just the reminder. I know Dan's seen this, but
I don't think you can really see that. But
yeah, no, I see it. He's a very muscly. He's somehow, I didn't know a werewolf could have a beard, but somehow he has a beard.
I think it's even better than that. I think I would call it a goatee.
Ugh.
A werewolf
G
with a
in
soul
Gnort
patch.
stands for goatee. Goatee Nord.
I hate that.
That could be a relative. Also, Gnort is canonically Larfleeze's like cousin.
Oh, okay.
Wait. When is that established? I don't remember this.
That is established in Justice League 3001.
Oh shit! In that book, that's fun.
Yeah, most people didn't make it that far into that series, so it's a little known fact.
Yeah, that's fair. Interesting. I like that. There you go.
I mean, yeah, there's a similar look to them. Yeah.
I feel like Larfleeze got more like boar looking as time went on and less like hairy.
Oh,
he looked more like a crack addict Pumbaa.
Sure. I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the last question. Dan, thanks for coming on the podcast. Maybe you want to let people know where they can listen to your podcast and where to find you online.
Yeah, of course. I mean, definitely go check out the Lantern Cast. I helped start that show back in 2008, and it's still going strong, talking mostly about just Green Lantern. LanternCast.com or just LanternCast in whatever podcatcher you use. We just actually had like a really cool deep dive retrospective into the entire history of Parallax, everything from Emerald Twilight to present day with like the Entity,
nice.
and back when it was just Hal Jordan under a different name, and it was a
Right.
really, really good conversation. Also, check out my YouTube channel. It's Mosaic Comics, and I started it in 2020 because I needed something positive to focus on during lockdown. And I figure why not take the thing I do with a podcast and add a video element to it and just gush about my favorite thing. And I haven't
awesome.
stopped.
I like
And-
I like it too because it's digestible on a certain subject or whatever. It's like how I watch a bunch of like Nerd of the Rings and stuff too.
Yeah, and it's like the Lantern podcast, but like missing one element that makes it better somehow.
Oh my god.
I do think there's a sort of Jay Leno thing happening here where it's like, yeah, you can take over the show, but I'm gonna put my show on and it's gonna come on before yours.
And it's gonna be video.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a hey, sorry, Conan.
Oh yeah, hell yeah,
Yeah, I love it. I love that. Yeah,
So check out Mosaic
Comics
and
on YouTube.
also a solid Twitter follow.
Great Twitter follow at Mosaic Comics.
Thank you. Hopefully Twitter still exists by the time this podcast goes up.
Or like, hopefully it doesn't, and we're all finally free.
We go to Monolith or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monolith.
That's a new one. Yeah.
What's Monolith?
It's supposed to be like a Twitter killer.
I still don't know how Mastodon works. Everyone that's like, you just figure it out. It's like,
maybe
fuck
I'm
you
thinking Mastodon
with your stupid servers and shit. Mastodon makes no sense. You'll
maybe
never catch me on there.
I think I'm thinking Mastodon.
Probably.
Anyways, if you want to talk to us on a platform that isn't one of those,
Yeah.
we've got a bunch of the other ones, including you can ask questions for next week's episode.
Next week, we are talking about transmutation powers. So we're talking about characters like Metamorpho and Firestorm and Element Lad and Dr. Alchemy, people that can like turn
Stuff into stuff.
into other stuff.
Nice.
So yeah, like elemental transmutation, or I guess if you're religious, transubstantiation.
Whoa.
That might be an interesting little corner of that too. But at any rate, we're talking about that next week. So send those questions
To our Facebook,
Dr. DC Podcast,
our Twitter,
at Dr. DC,
or our Mastodon.
never. Yeah, just Dr. DC at social.mastodon. What?
Our Instagram,
Dr. DC Podcast,
our email,
drdcpodcast@gmail.com,
our subreddit,
r/Dr_DC,
the doc phone,
208-917-3238.
208-917-DCEU.
If you're nasty.
Our TikTok.
At Dr.
I
DC.
don't know if you can really ask questions there, but
No, because I don't really post there. I'm just there to watch.
moms look like their kids.
No.
Or people chopping wood.
I mean, there's a fair bit of wood chopping on mine. Yeah.
Also, you can go to our website,
drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
why don't you give us 5-star reviews on whatever podcatcher you use, and while you're there, you can give us a 5-star review and subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah, baby.
And then it'll automatically get in your feed every single week. Also, we've got a Patreon.
Patreon.com/DrDC. There's a $1, $5, $7 level. They all give you access to the Discord, our awesome Discord fan community. And at the higher levels, you get bonus episodes, you get theme pulls, all sorts of fun stuff that helps to support us.
It's Personal Confessions January.
Yeah, baby, what an easy month.
Surprisingly harder than I think we intended.
Yeah, we've doubled down on how much we're exposing about ourselves and each other this month. So
Yeah, and some of it gets bleeped out.
Yeah, it's worth paying up.
Also, speaking of more content, because you babies are hungry, I'm gonna feed it down your little babies' throats. And
Jesus.
with our other podcast,
Yeah, Ghostfacers, a Supernatural rewatch. We're going through every single episode of the CW Supernatural. We talk about real world monster lore, behind the scenes stuff about the show. We're halfway through season 6 right now.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it's a good time.
all right, that is it for this week. Say goodbye, Dan.
Goodbye, me.
Adios.
That's right. It's hashtag last year of the Dan.
Oh my God.
Ciao, ciao.
Adios.
Oh God, no!
All the superheroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure, they are men of
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.